It's become a tradition for me, I think, to talk about theoretical, hypothetical specs for GH cameras for quite some time now. I think I started.
Just that series of cameras.
Yeah,
No
I
other cameras.
always make up what I think what they should do. Maybe
So
it's me wishful thinking.
Are you talking about making content about that? So like speculation videos? Because personally,
Yes.
that's the worst kind of content because it gets my hopes up, and then I get
Oh,
upset when
okay.
it doesn't happen. And this obviously has been happening for years. Of course, there's like Mac rumors
Yes.
or Apple rumors, something like that.
Lots of rumor sites.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's but that
You
I don't
got to
know.
follow the rumor
It's
sites.
like Gizmodo used to be the place I used to go, and it was always like gossip news. iPhones would get left, and people were like, "Ooh, is this the next iPhone?" I don't know. And then it would come out, and it just like didn't have the features that they talked
Oh,
about. So
sure,
it
sure.
like it was a huge letdown. It's kind of why I don't like watching trailers because it gives away everything. So not my favorite kind of content, but definitely tell me what you're talking about.
Well,
Maybe you can convince
maybe
me.
frame it as a wish list.
Wish list is better because
Yeah.
if you come out with it early enough, hopefully that company gets to see it
It's too late
and
for that.
implement.
It's too late
Oh,
for
too
that.
late. Well, okay.
I bet. I mean, they
Yeah.
got to be working on a
I think
GH7, I would
Sony,
imagine.
because you keep complaining about Sony not having a 180-degree shutter, which or like an angle.
Yeah, shutter
It's
angle,
like
right.
why don't they? They must know, right? Everyone talks about it, but they don't implement it. I don't know why. Maybe they're trolling their own camera community.
Who knows? I don't know why these companies do what they do. Someone said recently that they've said they've licensed the internal raw compression patent to every camera company, but none of them have used it.
But they have licensed it.
I don't know.
Oh,
This sounds like it's very hard to know what's true because even when stuff is said, I guess in interviews, when it's even key stakeholders in companies, they always have a little spin to it. They're always, yes, we're working on like Lumix, Panasonic for the longest time was like, we've really got autofocus nailed now. It's fully developed.
speculation like
No,
leading
no, no.
up to phase detect.
No. The like every release from the GH5 to the GH6, they're like, now we've got it.
Oh well, you got to
and
sell the
everyone
product.
and everyone would go, right. Oh, so it has phase detect. And they're like, what? No,
It's
no.
better, which it is better. That is true. Every iteration is technically better,
Sure.
but it's not what we want.
Right. Versus using autofocus on the Sony cameras. It just works.
Yeah.
It's incredible. The night and day difference. No, I wanted to talk about a wish list for the GH7 because I do feel like it's coming up on that time. We have the G9 Mark II, which now you've used, I've used. We have the S5 Mark II, the full frame line. They'll probably have more of those, maybe an S1H2 or whatever they call it. But I feel like there's always been something special about the GH cameras. They've been the most popular for Micro Four Thirds for Lumix, I would say. I don't know if that's actually true, but it just seems like online more people talk about the GH cameras than anything else.
Is it going to have as much of a pull now that they have their official, like their really good full frame?
I don't know. That's my question to you.
Oh, okay. What's up?
Do you think that it's still worth making something in the Micro Four Thirds line?
I
As someone who shoots Micro Four Thirds,
I think so because there's certain applications that camera is almost perfect for, like tabletop setups. Like we do a lot of those, whether it's like recipe videos or like product type videos. It's really nice to have a camera that is smaller and more lightweight that you can kind of fly overhead. Granted, I know full frame cameras are small and you can, find lenses that are lightweight, but in those types of scenarios, I think it's just a better option, especially, car mount rigs, like mounting them inside. It's just a smaller camera, smaller lenses. So in the certain situations, it makes more sense to have something like that. I just like the phase detect autofocus. Like that was literally the last piece of the puzzle. And I'm sure if you know anyone who does shoot more Micro Four Thirds, a lot of people are saying that the Mark II, the G9 Mark II, is better than the GH6. Like if you were going to compare the two, if you were going to get one, most people would say get the G9 Mark II.
Absolutely.
Just because
Yeah.
it has basically every feature from the GH6 and it has phase detect. Granted, it doesn't have internal fans and all that, but like you've said that you haven't really had any issues with it overheating.
not yet.
And
We
you
haven't
can
hit the
shoot 'em
summer yet.
outside.
Yeah. But
Well, right. And
We'll see how that
I think
goes.
I would overheat faster than the camera. So
Maybe.
it again depends on your use case.
So, is there anything you'd like to see from having you have shot with the GH6? I've shot with the GH6 G9 Mark II. What is your wish list for a GH7?
Just the autofocus. I don't need much else. I love the screen. That's the one downside from the G9 Mark II. Like the flip the tilting screen. It's like fully articulating on the GH6 plus the flip out, which is great because where I typically hold my camera, I have it kind of a little bit, I don't know, chest height maybe, and it's nice just to like glance down and see the screen tilted
Tipped up.
But you can't really do that. You can on the G9 Mark II, but you have to have the screen tilted
To the side.
out.
Yeah.
And it's not really a good position where I usually have my hand.
Speaking of screens and how popular, I've really hit a nerve with some of the Nikon fans, but I was looking at the Z9, the Z8, some of these premium high-end cameras from Nikon that have the most incredible features.
So now you're in the Nikon bandwagon?
No, because the screen is terrible.
Oh, okay.
You should look up what the screen does on the Nikon
What it does.
Z8, because I think that's probably the more popular one.
Nikon Z8.
8 screen, yeah.
I don't know anything about Nikon cameras. Haven't looked at a Nikon ever.
I think it was a deal breaker for me, this screen.
Starting at the low price of $4,000 for the
Right.
body?
Right. It's like that. What do you call that between so the Z9 is the flagship one. That's the extra big body with the 2 grips, side and bottom. The Z8 is all of that, but like a little bit smaller. But then the Z7 and the Z6 are more of your prosumer level, kind of more affordable, but you don't get 8K on those. So if you can find the screen, because I think none of the Nikons, or maybe only a couple, the screen is such an issue and such an important
what about
feature.
the screen, like the actual articulating aspect
Yeah,
of
maybe you
it?
can't
I'm
find it.
in here
Yeah.
looking at specs.
Oh,
Hold
no.
on. If I
It's
look
the
at video.
the way the screen tips and flips is so weird. Sony used to have flip out screens like that were the kind of
that
bracket
only
style.
tilt.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
it's like
those are
a
rough
quarter
to
tilt,
use.
and it almost looks like a TV mount shrunk down. So it has very limited. I don't know, what do you call it? Not flexibility, but
Articulation.
yeah. Anyway, we're getting off track here. On the GH7, I think to separate it from the G9 Mark II, are you still trying to find the screen?
I'm going through this product review. Oh, there it is.
You find it?
Yeah. So
Such a rabbit
if
hole.
I'm talking now, you can potentially see the screen. There you go. Yeah. So this kind of screen, it just like tilts out a little bit.
Kind of, yeah. You have to look at some photos. I'll send you a link. You can see what it looks like. It's real gross. But anyway, I'm not hating on Nikon. All the Nikon
Look at
fans.
It's so gross.
It is.
That's
It
what
really
you're
is.
talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, nasty. Ooh.
This is like metal arms. I don't know.
Nobody thinks that's a good idea. Okay. $4,000.
Yeah.
Well, they're probably thinking, well, they're going to have an external monitor.
Of course.
obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Or they're just taking pictures. Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, you're just taking use the viewfinder.
GH7. It'll come out. It'll be roughly 2,000-ish, probably upwards, 2,100, 2,300. I don't know. It'll be over 2,000 probably. They'll have the fan. They'll have the screen. They'll have time code. All the things from the GH6. But I'm wondering, what could they add? What do you wish they would add? Other than autofocus, because that's a given now. If Lumix keeps coming out with cameras that don't have good autofocus,
I know something that you were complaining about.
Oh, what's that?
The battery port. So you can have like a battery, like a constant power supply, basically.
You need
Because
the notch.
GH6 was weird. They put like it inside of like the latch, the door. They put a hole in the middle of the door, so typical adapters you can't feed through that little hole.
Yeah, unless the end's disconnected and you run
Yeah.
a wire, which is super annoying.
Yeah,
I've had to do
it's
that.
not easy
No.
to use.
And the
let's say.
notch worked so great. That's
Yeah, on the previous versions, it worked
Forever.
flawlessly,
That's just
easy.
been like how you run direct
It's just
power
a
to any
rubber
camera.
Maybe they were concerned. No, it's still like a rubber little gasket. I don't know. So
No,
weird
the thing for
design
me,
flaw.
I would love to see some kind of internal electronic ND.
Maybe because the cards are different on the GH6, maybe like 2 sets of SD slots would be nice. So
You
don't
want to go
have
back to SDs.
I've never had an issue with SDs.
Oh.
Personally, like I know you shot with those other cards.
Yeah, the CF Express Type B.
I've never needed them
Oh, they're great.
for anything. I've
They're so
shot.
sturdy.
They are. I've never needed.
SD cards are real flimsy to me, and half the time we used to have those cards. Remember, they would fall apart.
Yes, and since
And-
then I've never bought those. The Lexar ones.
Lexar,
Yeah,
but that's a
Lexar.
name brand. People trust Lexar. And
There,
I would
there
do
was
cards
only that batch though, because I still have and use some Lexar, but
From that
mostly
batch.
it's pro grade. The pro grade ones seem to last.
Yeah. I've seen, I don't know, maybe it's anecdotal, but the CF Express Type B seems faster. It feels faster when I'm transferring it.
Yeah, I'm sure it
I
is,
have less hangups because that's something I noticed on the GH6. If I'm using SD cards and I hit record, there's like a little bit of a lag where CF Express Type B is just rock solid. It just starts recording and whatever flavor you're trying to record.
Never really personally noticed, but I also don't shoot on like the highest, bit rate or anything. So
Sure. I've also liked that the CF Express Type B don't seem to be noticeably that much more expensive. It seems kind of like not a
like
big
a
difference.
So are you saying you'd want to see two of those ports?
No,
Potentially?
I actually really
Because
like
now
on the
they make
GH6.
huge, like cards.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
can pretty much record.
I
as much
like
as
the
you want.
flexibility of two different styles. I know some people like on the G9 Mark II, it's just two SD card slots,
Yeah.
which makes it easy for your media. But I like the ability to say, oh, okay, I'm going to use these cards. Oh, you need an SD card? Okay,
Right,
we'll use that and having that variety.
Mm-hmm.
But I could easily argue other situations where it's like, no, I only want two of the exact same so it matches.
Again, I don't shoot like redundant or anything. Like I don't like have a backup necessarily, but I do like when it transfers over on the off chance you're shooting for hours on end. I recently did a shoot that was like 6 hours straight of shooting, and I don't know. I don't necessarily have like a bigger power supply, so I kept having to run through batteries. But it was nice to have the two slots, if available, so then you can just kind of record one to the other.
Rolls
But
over.
I also just have like huge memory cards as well. So for the most part, I think I can record like up to 3 hours almost with one card. It's like a 256.
Right. And there's 512s now. There's even terabyte. It's crazy the amount of storage we have compared to back in the day. The one thing so I don't use two cards intentionally because I talk about this sometimes where you want to reduce the amount of risk you expose yourself to.
Yes.
And that sounds kind of counterintuitive because
You
a lot
don't
of
want
people
it to have like a error, like a corruption
no,
card itself.
I think so. Yes, you could record two slots as a copy, a duplicate, which is a safe, smart way to do it. However, there's many times where it's confusing which slot is which. And I feel like there've been a few close calls with other people where I go, oh, you don't know, you formatted the wrong card, because they're not.
Terrible.
If you have two cards in there, it exposes you to this choice of which one do you want to format, and then thinking, so this is this
If
has
you get
happened.
into your own mind about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're like, wait, which one did I? Oh,
And this has happened where someone will have two cards in, they'll be recording, and they'll say, "Oh, my card's full. Here's the card.
oh no,
Which one did they give me? The full or the empty?"
terrible.
So there's a little bit of risk there that I think it's a little bit clearer when one card, everything's there. I know I got but what I'd love to see on the GH7, this is something I have not seen on a Lumix camera. Maybe some of them do it, but on Nikon you can do it, on Sony you can do it, and it's recording proxies.
Proxies are very nice. Yeah, Sony, I have shot A7S III with proxies, and that makes editing workflows so much easier.
Right.
If you enjoy working that kind of workflow, because I noticed, especially recently, because computers are so powerful, not many people use proxies. We used to use them a lot more in the past, but it is nice just to have, like, if you just want to get the edit done, quickly, it is so nice using proxies.
And there's a lot of remote workflows now where you're editing either through the cloud, transferring, and that
Just sending files.
having
in
proxies right from the card. You don't have to process them after
No
the fact.
processing, yeah.
Upload them to your editor wherever they are. And that's my timer letting me know we have to wrap this up. No.
Well, now I've been thinking about it. I got a few things that I
All
would
right.
love
What's
to
your
see.
GH7 wish list?
But this is more like cinema aspects to it.
Yeah. Which is what the GH line is for. It should be video
Is
features.
it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if it is, because sure, why not? I would love to see false color. False color would be nice. Something
Is that not built in?
not false color. They have a histogram, which is nice.
I think
It's kind of hard to read though, that histogram.
True.
It doesn't really tell you like, there's no parameters on it really. There's just a whole bunch of lines and you don't know, like there's extra lines. It's like this should be 100, but then there's like a few extra steps.
Are you talking about the vector scope or the histogram?
The histogram. Yeah, or not the histogram. Yeah, the vector scope.
The vector
Is it
scope.
It's
Yeah.
the waveform. Sorry, the waveform.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. You're
Yeah.
right.
Sorry, not the histogram. My bad. Yeah.
The histogram's classic. I think that's the same
nobody ever really
histogram
uses histogram. Sorry.
in their UI since like the GH1.
Yeah.
The yellow
It's-
and white
it's- yeah,
histogram.
sorry.
Classic.
My bad. Misspoke. Yes.
Waveforms.
Yes, waveforms would be nice.
Useless.
Again, they do have it. It is kind of useful. Kind of. But not really.
Not really.
But like I said, false color would be fantastic. I very much enjoy using false color on
I
the
think.
Atomos
Have you
screen.
tried? Caleb Pike made a LUT that's false color.
I did see that.
Did you ever tried it?
No.
Because you could do that on the camera.
Yeah, but you can do that with your scopes. Like you don't need false color once you bring it in.
No, but you said
what I mean?
but you could put that LUT on the camera. You're saying you want it built into the Lumix
Yeah.
camera.
Why not just build it in?
You,
I don't
you
want to have
could.
like a LUT for it.
No, I know, but
That'd
you
be-
could do that right now.
Yeah,
People
but I
could
also
do
have
that.
a monitor. You know, it's like it's like if I'm gonna go through the process of doing all that, I'd rather it just be like built into the camera natively instead
Okay.
of having this like weird workaround. You know, like
Sure.
if we're talking about a wish list.
Yes,
I want,
that's
like,
what I'm
a
saying.
true
But
wish
I
list.
didn't know if you were
There's
aware.
a reason why I haven't done
can
that.
do
I'm
it.
very aware that Caleb
Okay,
Pike.
okay.
Actually, Caleb Pike is the reason why my footage looks so good now because I there was like that color checker passport. Like we've talked about it in previous podcasts, but he was like the person who got me onto making sure that like skin tones were accurate using it and like using a color picker to, you know, make your greens look like green, like using the hue versus hue slider, and making those micro adjustments that are very micro, really, but make a huge difference if you look at your, you know, before and after footage. So yeah, we were talking about him earlier, talking about how he should have way more subscribers too.
You should.
But yeah, the source of knowledge, like a huge source.
Yes, there's a workaround. You can kind of load false color LUTs in to different devices, not just the Lumix cameras. But I do agree it would be nice to be built in. That's a very video first feature that would
So,
separate it.
I think that's probably like my biggest ask would be that.
Well, how do you feel about because
So
for
then
me
I
it's the
wouldn't have to use my
electronic
monitor
ND.
as much.
Oh, true.
Just so like even smaller, more compact. But that's
Electronic ND.
I don't know how they'd fit it in to the Micro Four system. It'd be nice. I would love it. Yes. A wish list? Yes. Put it on the wish list.
Yes.
Why not? Yeah. But I also haven't, I don't know. We have our workaround, which is having this like adapter that goes on the front of your lens called the UU ring.
The swing away.
It's like a swing away ND filter holder, essentially. And for most of our lenses, we modify them, putting like step up rings to make sure they're like an 82 millimeter fit. And then if you buy like the biggest, which is like an 82 millimeter UU ring, and then you could put is it UU rig? I think that's it.
There's a few of the brands. I don't know. They're kind of hard to find.
On eBay is where I got mine. But then you can put like a variable ND or whatever kind of, you know, NDs, as long as you're shooting, I believe, past like a 24 millimeter.
That's why I stopped using it.
Yeah, you have to shoot pretty.
Well, in some ways, because I want my black satin filter on all the time, and
creates
screwing it in.
Or a vignette.
Yeah, the swing away doesn't thread all the. Some of them don't thread tight enough.
No,
if you're
not all of them.
If you're threading it into a filter, and then even then you'll get some vignetting. So I just kind of stopped using it. I just screw it on. But
I still use it quite often. But yes, so yes, in the ideal wish list, yeah, an internal ND system would be almost too much. I think that would be like, oh, you know what, Lumix, you've given me too much, because it's at that point where you almost want everything else.
Like what else?
So like XLR inputs.
Ooh.
But like that's even going like way too far, right? Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, gross. Don't build that into
it
the
depends
camera.
what kind of filmmaking you're going after, right? If like true, you know, docu style, at least the docu style I like to do, where it's like a very traditional formal interview with lighting and like a nice, like as much as we use like those DJI mics, like a lavalier mic, I don't think it sounds the best. Like I love using like my Sennheiser shotgun mic for interviews. It sounds fantastic. Boom pole. Don't have to like get awkward, you know, like, hey, can I put this mic on you? Let me, you know, thread it through anything. You have to worry about all that. You just sit them down in the chair. So having like XLR inputs would be cool on a camera. Like I like the FX6, for instance, is very nice having it built in, but the camera itself is huge, right? There's just a handle.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not
on the
built
handle.
in.
Yeah, it
Kind
comes
of
with the camera.
It comes
you know?
with, but
Yeah.
but the XLR adapter for the hot shoe on the Lumix systems, I
it's
feel
like
like works
plastic,
great. It is.
you
It could be
know?
better built.
Yeah.
A
So
little bit more low profile.
it gets into that territory where once you start adding all of these features, you're like, well, just make me another version of the camera, because at that point it's like, well, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It kind of loses the essence of like, well, it's a GH camera. It sheds all these other things so that you can have just this.
Yeah.
Like if I was going to have NDs and all that jazz, I would much rather them kind of only put that on their full frame cameras so that it makes it such a drastic difference. But who knows? If they can fit it into a Micro Four Thirds camera, great. And
A Sony can fit it into the E-mount, apparently.
yeah, like if they want people to really make more content, yes, add a variable ND into.
Well, and you have to be clear, electronic END.
Yeah.
Because I've said this in the past that they should put some kind of ND filter in there, and people are like,
have you ever
the
used
filters
those?
won't fit.
Yeah, have you ever used those before? Like on the FX6, there's the electronic ND.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
only a
great.
handful of times, but yeah.
Like transition wise, like going like from a light space to a dark space and it just automatically, like I've used it before only 3 times maybe. Works great, you know? But I'm also in the camp where I avoid shots like that. Like that's why whenever they talked about like de-clicked aperture rings, and I'm thinking like I've always thought this over the many years we've been doing like video for, you know,
Yeah, why are you
video on
changing your
cameras.
aperture?
I'm like, oh, why are you changing your aperture? It's like, oh yeah, de-click so you can, you know, like
Smooth.
Yeah, smooth transition between light and dark scenes. I'm like, but who's doing that?
I like the click, so I have the confidence
Right,
that
right.
this is a 2.8, not like
exactly.
a 2.
Yeah, my exposure
a
is not going to
2.85.
change.
No.
Because especially when you're doing focus, you can easily bump it. So I don't know. It is, I don't know. It's more like cinema, right? It's like, oh well, cinema glass has that. It's smooth. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of fun.
You did mention something which I don't think some people know about, but I think it is a pretty good tip that we take all of our lenses, regardless of the filter thread, and adapt them to all 82.
Yes.
So the step up or step down, I always forget the direction.
This one has it.
That one has it.
Yeah,
It's a 72 to 82.
72 to 82. It makes it so much easier. Like losing lens caps, the biggest issue you will ever have as a photographer, videographer. You lose lens caps all the time. So if you do this to all your lenses, you just buy a huge set of 82 millimeter lens caps. Bam, you got everything. Or filters. I've worked with some photographers that have a whole case of filters. Every size imaginable.
52,
and you can
a 57,
imagine how much that would cost to get every single filter for every single lens. And then you have to carry them all with you? No, absolutely not. Get the bigger size, get 82s across the board. You can adapt them, you know, with these rings.
Yeah. 82 is the way to go. And it was, I don't want to say recent now, but that was a newer thing that I didn't quite realize at the beginning, where I would buy
would've
52
known.
millimeter filters
In the beginning.
because that's what my lenses were. And then you get different lenses. You know, okay, got to get 77s. And then finally figured out just make everything 82.
But in the beginning, you don't know that.
You don't
Because
know
in the beginning, you could only afford the one lens and you could only afford the one filter. So you kind of get into a situation where later on you realize, like, well, if I just adapt everything, it'll all work. So maybe somebody hopefully is listening to it now and it's like, oh man, I need to get some step-up rings.
Well, and that's what I figured out too is the move, because I used to have multiple step-up rings, right? Where you...
A whole set.
Yeah, and you'd have to adapt and you'd end up adding space. And then I started buying, nope, what's my lens? Oh, it's a 58? All right, I need a 58 to an 82.
Yeah.
Oh, what's this lens? It's a 77? 77 to 82.
You want whatever filter as close to your front element as possible, or else you'll get these weird like halo spots flying around depending on how light is coming into your lens. So in order to avoid that, like get the filter as close to your front
And they're
element.
cheap. They're $10.
Yeah.
$15. Just search on Amazon.
And you can buy sets of 2, 3, 4. You know, it's better to have more of those because they do get bent every now and then too. So just FYI, you might, you know, having backups isn't a bad thing.
Yeah. All right, wrap it up. Any other? Because I think for me, electronic ND built in would be the one thing that
would be
that
fantastic.
signifies the GH7 is a video hybrid photography camera, separate from the G9. It's got phase detect now.
Yeah.
Let's keep things like the 10-bit 422 ProRes, great, all good features. Don't lose that. Keep the fan, keep the tilting screen. But I need that internal electronic ND because I feel like that's the actual last missing component to a true perfect camera for me.
It would be hard to beat price-wise, everything about it, like price, convenience of features, menu, lightweight, everything about it. Yeah, if they added internal ND, like I wouldn't even necessarily need the false color. But again, if it's the perfect wish list, that would be great.
Well, and I would take things like 8K or higher frame rates. Like I would take those things. More dynamic range, yes.
Sure.
But the difference, if you say, oh, now it's got 8K. Oh, okay, but we're already shooting 6K
I'd
in the
rather have
anamorphic
dynamic
mode.
range more than resolution for
Yes.
sure. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, give me, you know, like I don't know, less resolution, more dynamic range. Who cares, right? But yeah, wish list wise, for sure, I would add a lot. But at the same time, if we're trying to keep it into the GH line, I don't know how much they could add before people are like, well, then why would I get your full frame camera if this
Because
camera
it's full
has?
frame. That's the selling point. It's full frame.
Yes, but like, what do you like? Like medium format is even better. So like, why aren't people going to medium format? Right? It's
Because
like,
they're more expensive.
right, exactly. So it's like, if you can sell people on all the features of a camera and keep them in that, you know, micro four thirds, then make fast enough glass because, like we've talked about it before, just because your camera can shoot like on a full frame 1.4 or 1.2 doesn't mean you have to shoot at 1.4 or 1.2 because it doesn't look good. Like it rarely ever looks good. Like, and a
That
lot of
shallow
people
on full frame.
that shallow, like what's in focus exactly? Like, like I don't, you can't see anything. It's like like a razor thin. So do you really need that full frame look when you can achieve a similar look on a micro four thirds camera
Some
with all
people
those
would argue
features?
that you need it, and which is fine. I'm glad they've embraced it. I'm glad they've embraced face detect autofocus. But in all of these cameras of this style, there has not been a good way to achieve like proper exposure outside. And I think that's why the biggest mistake new photographer hybrid shooters make is playing with their shutter speed. Because we see that mistake all the
Oh yeah,
time.
people say it all the
Someone
time. Yeah,
goes
just
goes
crank your
outside and they
shutter.
crank their shutter and go, but you need to know about ND filters. And they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
If it's built in, it's a new tool that people can learn and understand, just like they understand aperture and ISO and shutter.
Yeah.
Well, arguably, people don't understand shutter all that well because they don't really get shutter angle, but that's a whole nother story. I think it's the missing piece. And I've been talking about it forever.
Which I would agree
and I hope they
because
finally took a note.
yeah, the GH series, because it does have shutter angle, it would make sense that they could bring in NDs and it would be
Yeah.
like a logical
Yes.
workflow within that one camera.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it's like if you only have a shutter and then you bring in an internal ND, like it kind of defeats the purpose. It's like, oh, you're adding in this like very like film centric feature of
And
like
still
internal
limiting people to
NDs.
shutter
And then
speed.
yeah, and then you're still having like a shutter speed. Like, what are you doing
Yeah, I
exactly?
know.
So yeah, it would be nice if they brought in the like an internal ND. That'd be huge. I would be beside myself. I'd be like over here.
Well, and I would actually have a reason to, okay, so coming from the G9 Mark II, great autofocus, works well. What's going to get me to buy the GH7? It has to have something special and unique.
Phase detect would get me to
But the G9 already has that.
yeah, but the internal fan and everything, like the other features that make it more of a video camera, and like that's the stuff that again we haven't experienced the G9 Mark II's overheating, so I can't necessarily say that. Oh yeah, the GH7 with a fan is much better. I don't know, right?
yeah.
But it is a good feature to have on a camera that you are recording video.
Well, no matter what, it's probably too late now. I'm sure this camera is far into development. So this is just
Speculation. To
maybe the
speculate.
GH7 doesn't have it. I guess we'll save it for the GH8 if we actually get there ever one day. GH7 could be the last one. Who knows?
Love to see it
But I would love to see it. Electronic ND.
and false color.
Yeah, false color. More of those video features.
Better
That's
waveform. False color.
bigger screen. That'd be nice. A little bit bigger. A little bit bigger. Do you remember?
I don't mind
gosh.
it. I don't mind it.
It was so not the Ursa. I think from the G1 and the G2 Ursas, they shrunk the screen down.
Oh,
There used to be a great screen on the original Ursa Mini that was big.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a beautiful screen.
The FX3 screen. Are you familiar?
No, I'm not.
So the FX3, what I do like about it is that the screen, it puts all the information on the borders above and below
Smart.
your actual, like what you're actual shooting, like whatever, if you're shooting 16:9, it'll have all the information off your image, which I think is a great feature. If they had that, that'd be nice. Because yeah, it's like when you're looking at your actual screen and have it just cluttered with information,
Yeah.
you might lose, something that you should be paying attention to. Especially like I said, if you add those other features that I use on my monitor into the camera, then I can be even more low profile, right? But also putting all the information off of, your main image. So that little thing would be nice as well.
One last thing I'll say that I think of. I'm glad on the GH6 they added the punch-in focus check
Yeah.
during recording.
Oh my god, yeah.
Great
Yeah.
feature. It just sucks.
White balance you can change
Yeah.
on the fly. That's nice.
I don't like that the punch-in is limited to 6x. Is it 6x zoom? I want a 10x zoom. On the GH5, you can do 20x.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's
You
too
can get
close.
so close.
I don't
where
need that.
I can't even tell what I'm looking at.
But I need the punch-in
Is
focus
this pixel in focus?
during recording, but it needs to be further than 6x because that punch-in is like a little mushy. It's not, doesn't have enough.
There was something else I was just thinking that it'd be nice for it to have. What was I saying? You should have asked me this earlier. I could have came to this prepared. Oh man, what is it?
And next time we can talk about it. It'll come to you tonight when you're sleeping. You'll go,
Yeah, I'll be like,
Eureka! I know what it is.
dynamic range. Like, what?
Yeah, there's some of those little nitpicks that are, having been with these cameras for so long from the GH1, they're really great. I just need to cross that finish line. Give me the internal electronic ND and I'll be, I think I could be happy with that camera probably forever.
I mean, if they figure out a way to make even faster glass, is that even a possibility? The lens would be pretty huge.
Well, no, so the 42.5 is kind of one of a kind. I don't think there's many 1.2 micro four third lenses.
Yeah.
They could and they should make more of those.
There's 0.95, but nothing looks
Manual
good at
focus.
0.95. Yeah, manual focus.
Yeah, they don't have any autofocus native
0.95s now.
that are like 1.2s. They should have more of those. Someone left a comment saying as such, and I agree.
Yeah, those look great. You had that, what was it, like a 75 millimeter?
Oh yeah,
Like
that's the
that's
Olympus
an
one.
insane
Yeah.
looking lens. I love that look.
That's a 1.8, I want to say, or
Is it 1.8?
1.7. It's around there.
Looks
It's-
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the
That's a cool
equivalent
lens.
of like a 135 full frame. It's super sharp.
150
Is it
would
75?
be the math.
75?
Yeah,
150.
Yeah.
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 My math is
I like
terrible.
the micro four thirds lenses. They're great.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not super. I mean, I'll go full frame, but then it's all new glass, and the micro four third lenses are actually really, really cool and really impressive. I think a lot of people don't give them the credit they deserve. More of those, but I kind of doubt we're going to see more micro four third primes. They should do it.
Yeah.
I'd buy some.
Well, who knows if, well, are you, are you ever going to switch then? If they come out with all
Yes.
these features, would you ever switch and shoot full frame?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I've thought about it.
You know, the coolest thing though is that 100 to 400 millimeter lens. Have you seen that? Or is it 150 to 400 millimeter? Like that's an insane
Yes.
lens on a micro four thirds camera.
Some of the super long micro four thirds lenses, the one that impresses me the most is the 50 to 200 because that one is actually sharp. Some of the super telephoto ones are not quite as good as you'd want.
Right, but equivalent to like a 600 millimeter or an 800 millimeter kind of lens for a full frame, they're pretty equivalent. Unless you get like a prime lens that's, you know, up there. Those are super sharp. But I've seen some video tests where people are comparing like a full frame camera at the same equivalent distance, like an 800 millimeter, and they look basically the same. But being able to carry that lens in your bag along with all of your other lenses, micro four thirds, like that's insane. Like that's its own selling point, especially if you are like a video content creator like we are, which we do more like documentary style, and just having like literally a whole arsenal on your back. That's fantastic. As a true creative.
Yeah.
I don't know. Want to
If you need
talk
to-
shame on people who shoot full frame only, but maybe consider
it's a
micro
look,
four
it's a
thirds.
style, and you can be your preference. But yeah, there's certainly advantage to shooting micro four thirds. And one of the coolest websites, I forget the name exactly, but I think it's something like m43lenses.com or something like that. Yeah. There's a really cool interactive chart where it's basically every micro four thirds lens, and you can filter by, do you want prime, zooms, stabilized, not stabilized, and it has the full, basically you can filter by aperture, and it's really intuitive and very helpful if you're looking for something where like, hey, does this type of thing exist? Because sometimes you don't even know what to search for.
Right.
You're wondering like, I'm looking for a prime. That's how I found that Olympus 75. I was like, I want a long prime that's fast, and that was about the longest, fastest prime that was affordable. I don't want to say it was cheap, but I think there's one that's more expensive. There might be a Leica one. I'm forgetting right now, but yeah, it's a cool way to find glass that you may otherwise not even know it exists. So I'd say check it out if you're interested in micro four thirds. There's lots of cool lenses.
Yeah.
The system's been around for a long time, but we shall see. I don't know. GH7. I hope it comes out or gets announced sooner rather than later. That would be it'd be good timing for it. I feel
Well,
like.
if it comes out soon enough, I think I can still return my G9 Mark II. It's still within that window.